I suppose we do, don't we?
I think we do, and I think it's also important to say where people are from.
Yeah.
Because we're not all sitting in the same room. We're actually all from different places, and
every area of the country,
aren't we? Exactly.
I suppose, yeah, that would have its effects anyway as well, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Are really fortunate today. Obviously, we've got Nate, we've got myself, Sharon, and we have got Louise. Louise, do you just want to say a quick hello and where you live? And yeah, just a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Louise.
That's the hard bit.
I live in a little village in North Yorkshire, and I've got 3 kids, 2 on the spectrum, and 1 with an ADHD diagnosis as well. And then I've got my daughter in the middle, who is amazing. But so yeah, I think I don't know what else to say.
Okay. Thank you. No, that's fine. And then what we'll do is we'll go into things a bit, as we start talking. And then we've got Flick. If you just want to say something about yourself, Flick.
Right, so I'm Flick, I'm 36, I live in East Sussex in a little sunshine coastal village. I am all the ADHD, finally got diagnosed with ADHD when I was 30. So for me, I'm a massive advocate of women being diagnosed late with ADHD or not getting diagnosed at all, and owning our ADHD. Being proud of it, something not to be ashamed of, making people aware of the difference between men and women with ADHD. So that's why I'm here.
Brilliant.
Good.
And I also know, I spoke to Flick earlier because I have just recently had a diagnosis of ADHD and I'm in my 50s. And I thought I was going to be all right with it, and I'm actually not. And I think speaking to Flick earlier today and hearing that I'm still who I am. I'm still me. I'm always who I always have been. But it's just what made me wobble a bit, I think. But it was reading my report from the psychiatrist. And I think I messaged my sister saying, I've got a disability. And it's like, yeah, but I've always been like this. It's the same. But it's just weird when they start having a label slapped on your head, I think. It's been difficult.
Like our normality and what is normal for us is the complete opposite for everyone else. And I think sometimes we're made to feel ashamed of it. So again, I'm like, no, we're going to own it. Like ADHD, but we are different in so many ways. And for me, I'm like, we are the shining lights of the world. How boring would this world be without people with ADHD?
No, and I love that. Yeah. And I needed to hear that because I've worked in children's services, in teaching, in adult services, and my whole life I've supported people, young people, adults who are neurodivergent, and I'm accepting and I learn all the strategies and how to support them, but I haven't applied any of it to myself. And I think how I feel, honestly, I needed to hear Flick say all that this morning because I'm literally, it's only 3 weeks ago since I got a diagnosis, and it's made me wobble a bit. It really has, and I wasn't expecting that because I knew I had ADHD. I just think when someone actually told me, I always wanted to, I don't know, and reading it in words and reading about the difficulties that I have, it actually made me feel a bit sad as well.
So going into the first question nicely, beautifully there. So when was the first time? We should start with kids or should start with us? Let's go with us first. We'll talk about us first. So, Flick, when was the first time that how did you come about your diagnosis? When did you start seeing signs or symptoms? And when did you realise that was ADHD?
Do you know what? So again, for me, this is my normal. This is how I am. I've never seen anything wrong with it. Other people have. And I can look back now and laugh. But the first time people were really like the only I could describe was they were like, there's something wrong with you. I think you need to go and seek help. And I'm like, oh, okay. But it was when I was in the gym. So I would literally go to the gym every single day for 3 hours. And I was bouncing off the walls. But the gym was like my sort of safe space. So that's where I could get all my energy out. So then I could then come home. Like I've got 4 children. I've got a son that's got ADHD, autism, tics and Tourette's, a vision processing disorder and sensory processing disorder. So to deal with that when you're so manic yourself, I was like, I need to release my energy just so I can focus on him. And so there was a lot of questions, like other people being like, oh, I think you might have ADHD, and I'm like, yeah. And it was only when I took my son for his assessment and she was like, you've got ADHD and we need to do your assessment. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me, 100%, because it made me look at my whole life. Anything that I've then struggled with from like childhood, whatever, it sort of gave me answers to everything. So when people were like, oh God, you don't put any effort in, you don't listen, you're so easily distracted, if you could just concentrate, if you stop talking so much, if you could just chill out, all these things that made me, that everyone was like, just dampen it down. And it was a massive struggle. And it's like I was speaking to Sharon about it this morning. I was like, it got exhausting because it was so much negative stuff. And I think even now people are, oh God, they've got ADHD, like avoid them. And I'm like, no, these are the best people you're ever going to meet, because you're never going to have a boring time.
We said, didn't we, Flick, that if you go to any social event and people don't want to start eating the food, or no one wants to get up and dance, I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm up there. And you were saying that people actually want you at their parties and their...
Yeah, everything was always like, make sure Flick's coming, make sure we're going to have a good time if she's there, like make sure she's there, because it's, again, I'm not ashamed, I'll get right into that buffet before everyone else is there, and I'm like, get in, dig in. I will always on the dance floor, like, if you're worried and you're a bit shy and you think there's going to be nobody to talk to, don't worry, I'm going to talk to you, I'm going to make you feel comfortable, but have the best time.
Yeah, exactly. Louise, can I just ask you, so you don't have a diagnosis, but you've got your children, and you've also got, was it your partner?
It's my
He had a
ex-husband.
late diagnosis.
The children's dad, my ex-husband, he was diagnosed with autism when about 2-3 years after Reese. So it was about 10 years ago now. But like I said to you the other day, when we was going through the process with Reese, he started to pick up on things and said, well, I used to do that as a kid, but I understand why he does that. And so it was suggested that he went through an assessment, and I went to the assessment with him, and I found it really, really interesting, because they asked him, how do you make a cup of tea? And I thought, why are they asking him how he makes a cup of tea? And he said, well, you have to fill the cup with 3/4 of water, because then it's sufficient enough that if somebody wants milk, there's space there to add milk into it. But then if they don't want milk, there's still enough water in there to warrant it being a cup of tea. And then I was like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. And then he started talking about stirring it, and he said, I have to stir it 10 times. And I was like, but why do you have to stir it 10 times? And he was like, because that's the amount of times it needs to be stirred every single time you make a cup of tea. And funnily enough, my eldest is obsessed with cups of tea, and he does exactly the same, because I listen to him when I'm in the living room. Sometimes he always stirs it the same amount of times every time he makes a cup of tea. And it's just like little things like that I never picked up on that were any different, because like I said, we've not known any different, because Reese is 17 now. He was diagnosed when he was 2. I wouldn't, if I was given I always laugh and say, if I was given a child that doesn't have additional needs, I wouldn't know how to parent them. I only know how to have additional needs. And so for us, it is the normal. But I think he appreciated getting the diagnosis, because for him, I guess it answered some questions as to why he kind of thinks a certain way, and why, because sometimes he could come across as quite rude. And it was because obviously he would talk and say things without even thinking about them. And then afterwards I was like, oh, maybe you shouldn't have said it quite like that. But for him, I guess getting that diagnosis kind of explained why maybe he does those kind of things.
And something else you said, Louise, yesterday when we spoke, was that you've got a very autism-friendly household, and you were talking about your daughter and saying that actually, because you already have all these adjustments and all of these routines and all of these things in place, is it that she's just, going along with everything, or are they actually the strategies and the routine and structure that she needs?
Yeah, because
It's hard to say, isn't it?
Our household is so structured and so routine based. It's massively routine based, and I have visuals like timetables up and things of like what we're doing. I have to have it like that because otherwise the boys just don't. I'll get asked a million questions if I don't have it up visually that they can see exactly what we're doing, what we're eating for dinner that day. So I guess with my daughter, she's not known any different. She's grown up like that. So there was a question mark over a couple of years ago as to whether or not she had autism too. But then it was difficult working out whether she's doing these things because she's in a household with two boys that both have autism, or whether it is an actual struggle for her. Without, I guess,
hard, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it was decided in the end that there wasn't enough evidence there to give her a diagnosis. But she does suffer with anxiety. But I remember she said to me once, I'm kind of disappointed I didn't get diagnosed. And I said, why? And she said, because I think maybe you'd kind of love me a little bit more if I did. And I said, well, no. I said, because obviously the boys require a lot of my attention sometimes. I think she feels like she doesn't quite get the attention that she needs sometimes. So she was like, well, maybe you could give me more attention. And I said, no, it's not because I don't want to give that attention sometimes. It's just sometimes the boys require it more, but it doesn't mean I love you any less than what I do the other two.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hard, isn't it? That is hard. Because unfortunately, when you're supporting someone with autism and ADHD, it looks different because you are having to put, like you were saying, the routines, the boundaries, the structure, the visuals. You were also saying, Flick, that your life is very structured, and that supports you to have these routines.
Yeah, like I'm always a believer that in general everyone needs structure and routine. That's how we get through life, and maybe that's a coping I don't know. I always saw it as a coping mechanism for everybody. I thought everyone done that, and then obviously after speaking to Sharon, she's like, no. But for me, obviously with my son, with all of his diagnosis and stuff like that, and even for me, without noticing, I've always had structure and routine, and that is how I coped with the first sort of 30 years of life, was with the structure and the routine and doing the same thing every single day, knowing exactly what I'm doing so I didn't get distracted. And just so to avoid meltdowns a lot with my son as well, because it was when he knew what he was doing, absolutely fine. The moment plans changed or he didn't know what he was doing, you're then faced with constant meltdowns, which that just makes life so hard anyway, and then harder to enjoy because of like even trying to do like a surprise for him, a surprise day out. I was like, I'm never trying to do a surprise again because he would have a meltdown the whole day. He'd be having the best day ever, but because it was a surprise, he just couldn't cope with it.
My poor children, I'm so not routine based and not, which is what I was talking to Flick about. I wish I could be. I don't seem to be able to form habits. So I'll do something full on. I'll go to the gym and I'll do that for 6 months and then I won't go again for a year. Or I think I was saying to you that I do yoga every day. Did yoga every day. And it really helped me to put me, because I know Flick, you were saying about meditation and it did really help. But then I miss it one day and now I've not done it again. But I know that I need to do that, but it's just being able, I can't.
When did you know? So if you've only just been diagnosed, looking back now, can you relate a lot of it back to your diagnosis? Or did you, because obviously your mentality of things would have been like, that would have been normal. And then 3 weeks ago, it's like, no, that's ADHD. So like your life.
But maybe that's why I'm having a wobble now then.
That's what I mean. Yeah. How's that?
And I googled it, and it's a disability. And I was like, I'm disabled, but I'm in my 50s, so it is what it is. But everything I now realise was because I've had ADHD. And I'm not going into everything, but poor choices. I thought I had an addictive personality because, like I've said, I'd be really full on something, which I'm sure you see with your kids as well, Louise. So full into something and then I'm not interested. I always admire people that, go to their exercise class on the same day every week. I can't do that but do you know why I can't do that? And I do know it's because I get a bit of a thrill sometimes just from not doing something or from doing something spontaneous or different. It's not funny.
Like,
That's how I live my day, my life. That's how it is. And I didn't realise. I think it was Flip. I spoke to about this coffee machine, and I thought it was going to change my life. And then when I realised it's quite expensive, and then when I got it and realised it's just a coffee machine, and no, I now know it's about dopamine. So I got a bit of a thrill because I spent too much money on a stupid thing. And then when I got it, I was like, oh, it's just a coffee machine. And I phoned my friend who had one and said, I thought this was going to change my life, and it hasn't. It's shit. So yes, but yeah, did that answer your question?
Yeah.
I feel slightly uncomfortable now. But then I feel like I overshare, and that's another thing I hate. Sometimes I think it's funny.
Like, even with the oversharing, you can sit there, you're honest, you've got nothing to hide.
Yeah.
Like,
but you have to read the room sometimes. Do you not sometimes just go, like when you want to suck the words back in, you're like, oh, I just said that out loud.
I don't care who's in the room.
maybe that, yeah. But that's who I have always been. I didn't think I had, but something you said the other day, Nathan said to me, what you've always been like this. And I was like, no, I haven't. It's because I got told I had ADHD 3 weeks ago. I'm now like that. But I think I've always been like it. Delusional as well, really.
It must be, as I said, it must be hard. From my point of view, I had it since I got diagnosed when I was 11. So mine's the reverse. So I've known my symptoms and known about ADHD growing up and known how to separate. Well, not how to separate it, because again, it is just you. You have a little bit of personality in there, I think. Everyone's slightly different, quirky, but the base of ADHD makeup is pretty much similar throughout. So like even going to my kids, I was lucky because then my oldest was born. By the time he was 3, I knew he had ADHD because he's just mirrored exactly how I was and how I am. So it was very easy for me to get the diagnosis. I feel it does make me feel lucky a bit because as I said I've grown into it. I was through the wave when I was first studying it. Sort of when I got diagnosed, you grew out of it. So like it was just a boys thing back then as well. So it was a boys diagnosis, and you just grew out of it, and that was all that was said. So as much as I was aware of it, there wasn't as much information as like you lot have got now. So when you have got your diagnosis, you can look into say, oh, this is it. You've got people talking about their diagnosis. When I got told it, it's still people in my school, teachers were saying it's not real. You're just a naughty kid.
Yeah.
So I didn't even think about it. I just kind of went both. Kind of just was like, yeah, okay, maybe I am. Like, do you know what I mean? Because I didn't know. It's only coming out, and then I said getting diagnosed as an adult. I've really gone back and thought, oh my god, like ADHD is there present, isn't it? Like, and it's if you don't learn to manage it, it will overtake you. But I think where people go wrong with symptoms is trying to null them.
Yeah.
You know, I think people try and take away symptoms instead of encouraging them to kind of manage them in a appropriate manner. That makes sense, isn't it?
That's why this is going to be really useful, because speaking to other people that have got ADHD have made me think actually it's okay, and that is part of ADHD, and also that's normal. Like we were saying, it's our normal, and that's who I am, and that's who you are, and that's we're not bad people. In fact, we're quite fun, and we're not boring, are we?
Exactly. The thing is, we're like brutally honest. Like, we're not liars. We're whatever we're thinking comes straight out.
Doesn't it?
We've got hearts of gold. Like, you might think we're not listening, but actually we're listening, and we're interpreting our story because we're trying to relate to you all the time.
That's true. That's really true.
Like, really intense. So again, it's like after being surrounded by negatives, and it's again that whole, like, obviously Nathan, you were 11 when you got diagnosed. It was so recognised, whereas for so many girls it was just, she talks too much, she's easily distracted, she doesn't concentrate, she doesn't do her work. You then become disruptive, and all you're getting is all this negative stuff, like, oh, well, if you just concentrated more, if you just put the effort in, if you just stop talking, not like
daydreaming. Daydreams. It was like, I'm not daydreaming, you're just really boring.
I know that women have this argument quite a lot, especially like diagnosis, just to throw the spanner in the works. do you think it's better that you've gone for, I know you're going to say no because you wish you had a diagnosis at the beginning, but then you would have been treated with your diagnosis. So you've got a whole life when you haven't been treated for being ADHD and haven't been tied to them stigmas. Do you think, now thinking of that, do you think your diagnosis, when do you feel you wish you had your diagnosis? Do you feel lucky to have it later on in life, or do you wish you had it going through school and having that diagnosis attached to you?
Because for me, I got a lot of anger at the fact that I was labelled as this child that didn't listen, didn't concentrate. And I'd literally be sat in a lesson, and in my head, like, my narrator's like, right, you're going to concentrate, you're going to listen, you're going to do the work. And I'd be sat there and I look like I'm listening, and I'm like staring at this teacher. And they go, right, do your work. I'm like, oh God, I forgot to listen again. And I'd be annoyed with myself. And then I just got labelled as a kid that didn't listen and spoke too much.
But as an adult, it's the same, isn't it? I can still, I ran a school, and I was very good at it, let's just say. And I've done lots of different jobs. And there is definitely hyper-focus where I'm really like, right, this thing needs to happen. And I'm also creative. I'm quite logical, I think. In fact, I'm a complete, because I can say all that, but then I can be the complete opposite. So it's like having, isn't it? It's like complete opposite. But I would never know when term started. How bad is that? Oh my God. When do I have to go back to work?
So do you think you should have it?
I don't know.
I think what my only thing as well, like being in defence of getting an early diagnosis, is you don't understand what that done, especially that early on, as in how much that segregated you. So as much as you can say, yes, you was labelled that the one that didn't listen, didn't do that, you didn't have the excuse to get labelled as a weirdo because of it, if that makes sense, because they didn't understand it back then. You got segregated in that just totally all the time. But like, it was when it's right to say someone's a bit weird, but when you know someone's got something, you treat them in a certain kind of way, as in what they're telling you to. So you get put in a box and you get put in, or do you know what I mean, or just hidden away basically where it would have been, and you do get segregated a lot. And I think that, I don't know, if I was I don't know, I reckon, I don't know if I could have coped without a diagnosis though, because I've always known it, and it's been, so that's why I see where you're coming from, because
it probably has shaped how you were treated in school, because ADHD was always negative.
Anyone
over all the boys, you could walk into a classroom and you can see straight away, but you wouldn't be able to tell which girls.
No, I don't know if girls are better in intentionally masking or unintentionally masking. To this day, I don't know which one it is. But I think for girls, there's just more, I don't know if they find it easier to mimic other people, to see how everyone else is behaving and sort of behave that way. And I think for me, I'd done that unconsciously for a long time. And it just got to a point where I was like, oh my God, I can't keep being normal. Like, they're
exhausting.
Normal.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm so tired, so depressed. And I was like, oh, I just want to go and do the things that I want to go and do. Like, if I want to go running off and see if I can jump over a bloody wall, I just want to go and run and jump over a wall. Like,
my silly balancing on things. I think I said to you,
dance. I'm going to sing in the dance. Like, why can't we?
Yeah, mine was when I was younger. I just wanted to hang upside down a lot because I like the feeling of being upside down, and dancing and being running and being quite just being spontaneous. And I thought I'd grow out of it, and I think that was something I found difficult recently because I still do the stupid things. And then I think, oh my God, shouldn't I have grown out of this by now? Why am I trying to balance on something that's quite dangerous? And then as soon as you have a drink of alcohol, it's like, oh no, I'm going to do this balancing thing.
We'll go back to that. No, we do need to go back to that as part of the thing. Moving on from ADHD onto autism quickly. So, what are the so if talk about ADHD symptoms, they can be very, I would say, more out there than autism can be. Autism, as you said, Louise, is subtle. It could be something the way they do tea or something like that. What the difference is that with your you've got a couple diagnoses of your children, haven't you, of autism?
My eldest has autism, and he has autism sensory processing disorder, and
Right.
pick. And then Blake has autism and ADHD.
So with Blake's, oh sorry, go on. Oh yeah, with Blake's ADHD and autism. So because he's got both, it'd be quite. What the differences that you see, and as in the effects of the autism and the ADHD symptoms and.
So Blake was diagnosed when he was 2, and I knew from the age of 2 that he potentially had ADHD as well. But Blake was very poorly when he was younger, and he had a lot of operations. He had open heart surgery when he was 2, and before the surgery, he would just lay on the floor and not move and not really want to play because of the medical condition he had. After he had the surgery, it was like someone had flipped the switch in him, and he was so hyperactive. He would never get tired. He'd be up till like nearly midnight every night, and nothing I did would get rid of all this build-up of energy that he had. So I went to the medical professionals because he was already under a lot of doctors because of his medical problems. And I said, I think he might have ADHD. And they said, well, one is too young to even look at a diagnosis. And I said, we think he's just playing catch up because where he's been so poorly, he's not been able to do anything. And now he's catching up with everything. And so I left it for a couple of years, but it didn't settle. I always joke that he's like a Duracell battery because from the minute he wakes up to the minute he goes to sleep, he's full on 1,000,000%. And so I really pushed a lot, but it took us a lot to get him diagnosed because I think he finally got accepted onto the waiting list just before his 5th birthday. And I filled out the questionnaires that you do, and I was waiting for an assessment, and his paperwork sat on somebody's desk over at CAMS for nearly 2 years without anyone even picking it up and looking at it. He basically got lost in the system. And so it wasn't until last year he actually got the diagnosis. And that was really because I pushed it a lot because I knew it wasn't just autism. Like, I didn't really know a huge amount of it about ADHD. I knew of ADHD and I knew what I'd seen on like social media and things like that. But I never really knew kind of what the difference was. There isn't a huge amount of difference. The main thing is the hyperactivity for Blake and the impulsiveness, and just the lack of danger. Like, he will do something without even thinking. Like, if we was crossing the road, he'd think nothing about running across that road without even thinking, oh, I need to stop and make sure there's no cars coming. He's a whirlwind, basically. He's like a little mini tornado. And he's amazing, and we love him lots, and I wouldn't change him for the world, but he is hard work.
So do you struggle more with the autism side of it or the ADHD side of it?
I'd say kind of a mix of both.
Or does he struggle?
Blake is more aware now. So he knows he's got autism and ADHD, and he always says to me, because he said to me a couple of days ago, he said, Mummy, I've got 3 personalities. And I said, oh, have you? And he said, yeah, I've got the one that always talking and can't shut up. And I was like, right. He went, the one where I'm feeling a bit tired and I don't really want to speak. I went, yeah. And he said, then I've got my ADHD personality. He said, it's like I've got 100 tabs up and inside my brain and I can't close any of them. So I think he's starting to make sense a little bit, and he's starting to understand himself a little bit more and understand that he does have autism and ADHD, and there is reasons as to why his mind maybe works that way. He does have a lot of support in school. I'm really lucky in that respect. He has a one-to-one with him throughout the entire day, so someone that can help keep him on track and keep him focused. And he has like sensory toys and things in school with him that he uses when his mind is starting to go a little bit. So I'm really, really lucky in that respect. But I would say that it's kind of equal amounts with both, with the autism and the ADHD. It depends on the day and kind of how things are going. Like, some days the autism is a little bit harder, but then other days it's the ADHD that's a little bit harder.
Yeah.
Very good. So just on the last bit about symptoms, I'm going to go around and ask the worst symptom and why that you think you want to struggle with the most. So I'm going to go first. I'm signing you up to be ready for the next. So, okay, we'll go around. I like to go around this way, like we're sitting in a circle. Okay, we'll start with Flick. So what's the worst symptom of, okay, we've got to do two for you. Worst symptom you see in your child that you struggle with and like try help with, and the most annoying symptom that you have, that you feel.
I think worse is the wrong word, because I think Flick has clearly said that she embraces it and she does.
It's got to be, no, not everything. I refuse to believe that someone's 100% whole of ADHD.
Do you know the one thing? Oh, I don't know, because a lot of things make me laugh, and the one thing that annoys me, which I think it only annoys me because I didn't realise that this doesn't happen to everybody, is the narrator in my head. So the narrator that has been there since day dot, having a million different conversations, thinking about a million different things, telling me so many different things, and obviously I'm talking to myself, and it's the question of, was that in my head or did I say it out loud? And I think that's the one thing that annoys me, because I'm like, oh my God, like sometimes it'd just be nice just for your brain to shut off.
Yeah, to shut up. I know.
And I think that's maybe the worst thing, because people don't realise that even when I'm sat here, there's, again, like with you, where you said like with your son with the tabs open, I'm like listening to this, but then in my head there's 10 different tabs that are open and 10 different stories and 10 different scenarios, and it's like, and I'm like, oh my God, so it would just be nice just to shut that off, just to concentrate on one thing. And for my son, ironically, and I'm going to sound really horrible, the noise, all the noise, you know, like the chaos, because I'm like, I've calmed myself and I've done that and I'm chill. I've had my manic episodes, I've like been busy, done all my stuff, and it's then like when I'm calm and then he starts and I'm like, oh my God, and now I can't deal with that. So for me, that's probably the one. It's in my head, and then the noise of him when he's having the manic episode.
I think they're good ones, and they're really good ones. Yeah. I think, again, people underestimate ADHD just idle. So idle ADHD, just sitting there just with them tabs open, how much that actually causes anxiety through your body, because you're constantly thinking, which means your brain's working and you're getting exhausted because you're burning calories. People don't think that being anxious actually burns a lot of calories. So if you're going through that a day and you're thinking and your brain keeps going and going and going and going and going, it's true. Yeah. So you're even sitting there doing nothing can be over. People be like, well, you haven't done anything. You're like, but no, this is the worst day I've had, because that's it. I've not had nothing. I've been in my brain all day. Like,
we sat there in silence. My head's not silent.
Yeah, that's it.
There's still people talking. There's still music playing. There's still conversations going on. But it's, you know, on the outside world, it's dead quiet. But in here, no. And one thing where I think, and it's again where I got into like meditation and stuff like that, just to quieten it down, like just to try and get a bit of peace. And I swear to God, that was the one thing that maybe helped me, was being able to try and shut your brain off. Just to have like that 5 minutes of peace.
That's good idea, actually. Everyone, it's just being able to do it, isn't it? I've done that. What are you thinking, Sharon?
Why are you coming to me next? I don't know. I'm new to this. I might just say exactly what Flick said, but again, I just thought that was normal, and I still think it is. I'm not, because it is. It's my normal. So I don't like. I had a day this week where I literally felt uncomfortable in my own skin, and I'm feeling ashamed now, because it just makes me feel ashamed. Where I felt like I said things that maybe I didn't say it in the right way. I would never want to hurt anybody. I'd never want to be rude. And sometimes something just, why am I saying sometimes? All the time, things just come out, whether it's by text and I can delete the text or read whatever, because I never want to hurt anybody. And sometimes I think that's sounding really rude or really horrible. And the other thing is, if people think I'm being rude because I'm in a conversation and it's going on too long, and then something happens over there and I'm gone, and then I come back and I think, shit, I don't actually know what you just said. that's quite, and that makes me feel bad about myself, which I didn't realise was an ADHD thing, because then I really go in on myself and then I withdraw. So then rather than being the life and soul, I would then be quite withdrawn, probably not contact people. And I've always
Yeah.
done that. And that's when the anxiety, maybe a bit depression and things like that kick in. But
Yeah.
maybe that will get better. Now I know it's ADHD. And now I don't think, actually, I'm just this horrible person who's rude, outspoken, and not very nice, because I don't want to not be very nice. And that's how I feel sometimes. So thank you for that.
Mm-hmm. What about yours? Could be a slightly awkward question. What's the hardest thing that you like hardest symptom you struggle with supporting in your career wise? Like, what's your hardest?
Well, I think, again, I'm just going to go back to what Flick said, because sometimes traits we see in ourselves are the ones we find most annoying in other people. So if somebody is being, like you were saying about noise, or whereas I can also do that, I can also be very loud, and I'll have the music up loud, and I'll be jumping around like an idiot, and the kids are like, oh my God. Whereas if they were doing that and I wasn't in that space, that would probably annoy me. So in schools, perhaps, you find that children that are quite vocal and quite loud, but they're also the first ones to put their fingers in their ears because they can't stand back. So I'm not saying that's more, it's difficult, because if you've got everyone needing to make their own noises at their own time, in a classroom, for example, where you've just got children on the spectrum and you've got children with additional needs, they've all got their own thing going on, although it's all very similar. It's all at different times, and they're not always tolerant of others. What about you, Louise? What do you with your children?
Well, I think it's probably the same with both the boys. It's the constant need to know absolutely everything. Like, from the second they get up, it's like a million questions. As soon as Blake wakes up, he's wanting to ask me, like, and I'm not a morning person. I need time to wake up in the morning. And when he's trying to tell me about some kind of comet or space explosion that's going to happen in 10,000 years' time at 7 o'clock in the morning, it's like... and I guess that probably kind of ties in with what Flick said as well, because it probably is his brain where he's thinking about all these different things. So then they need to ask those questions. And it's like, my eldest is obsessed with football, but being autistic, he can't just stick with one football team. He has to know everything about every single football team. And he'll come downstairs with me and go, Mummy, do you know this football player or this team? And he has to tell me some really important bit of information. But he can tell you what football player played what match and like 10 years ago or something like that. Like, he's got so much knowledge on it, but he wants to share that knowledge all the time. And sometimes I'm just like, Mummy just needs 10 minutes. Peace and quiet to gather my own thoughts.
That's a good one, actually, isn't it? A good one. Questions. Yeah, God, Jesus.
So are we now going to reflect that to you then?
You can reflect to me. I suppose I can answer it both ways, ADHD and autism. So for me, ADHD, worst symptom, for me, I don't know if this is different, again, being male, the way we present it is, I don't know how to explain it, like unprofessionalism at times. Right, so basically my emotions get to me quick time in no matter what setting I'm in, and it's caused me problems somehow. I don't know how I've not been fired or something from jobs previously, because like something would happen and I get so wound up and it's physical. I can't hide that I'm angry, and I start getting really physical, like not physically angry, but like start. You can hear it in the tone of my voice and stuff. Sometimes when you're like, like when some people could be professional arguers, I envy them. People that could just say that slight dig that sends someone over the edge for 3 days. Like, and I'm like, I can't do that. I get so annoyed at someone saying it. Like, then I get really defensive, and I'm in meetings, I get my back up, and then afterwards, I'm like so embarrassed. I'm like, oh my God, like how unprofessional was that? And throughout my life, that has caused me countless trouble, like going up the ladder, going even just day to day. I mean, I had it yesterday with the cat. Like, I was trying to record yesterday, and I just couldn't do it. I just shut the operation down. So I'm not doing it anymore. Not doing it. Like, and just didn't record.
I just sat there very quiet. I just thought, nothing is really happening.
See, I feel the way that I deal with stuff is like my best bit. Like, that's my whole personality. Like, if someone, like, I would never argue with somebody if I thought I was in the wrong, or if I've done something wrong, I hold my hands up. I'm like 100% yes. Someone accuses me of something I haven't done or whatever, I'm all guns blazing. I find myself really funny with the stuff that I come out with, because it feels like I think I can be having a full on argument with someone and I'm laughing my head off because of this stuff that's coming out of my mouth, and it's so fast, it's so quick. And I think that's probably one of the things that I love about it the most, you know, just that unfiltered. If something pisses me off, you're going to know about it. I'm going to tell you. And it's going to be really fun.
The fact that you're so funny, because I actually think I'm really funny, and I know that you think you're.
Hey, listen, I'm a stand-up comedian and I get paid for it. It's fine. I get joke money.
Because we say what everyone else is thinking, but it's too scared to say. Like, we're going to say it.
Yeah. Going to autism traits, I think the hardest thing I see in my kids, and I think I've struggled with even in my work career, is time. I hate it. It's the enemy. It's never your friend. And I can't, like, so my son is, I've done videos about him, and I like just obsessed, and my daughter have both got like their routine. I have to do stuff at a certain order, but they're not the same rules. So they both have different schedules of the day, and no one's even made the day up yet. So I've just woken up. We've not said we're doing anything. They've decided that they want to do this. They put it into a schedule, and then you're on a timeline for the rest of the day of, oh, let's get this. I want to go get this. Oh, we've got 10 minutes. How long's left? 5 minutes? And how many left? We've got 2 minutes now. Like, it's just through the day, and it's the amount of issues that happen naturally through if you're putting your whole day on the timeline, like traffic, like something being closed, weather, like everything can throw it out, like, or just natural, say like your car breaks or something, and there's no tolerance to. And I struggle the hardest, because if you put it like they like time to the time, you're setting them up to fail, because it's not like that. But then if you don't do it, their anxiety in their head can't cope with the looseness of it. Like, you can't say, oh, we'll go in a minute or we'll go later, because they have a breakdown because they can't handle that. So it's the happy medium. I haven't found it yet, and I think that's what I struggle with the most. And even like, all round.
The hardest part about being an adult with ADHD with a child with autism, because for me, I'm like, we're winging it. Like, I would love to just wing it all day and just do whatever I like. I'm so sporadic, like spontaneous. My son, on the other hand, so regimented, so he needs to know exactly what he's doing. There's no change whatsoever. Can't take the manicness of it. But then on the other hand, he's then like, oh, I want to be doing all the things that you're doing. So trying to find a happy medium within that is sometimes so hard. I think that's what a lot of stresses come down to most of the time, is that the unpredictability of ADHD, but the structure of autism. Yeah.
And then you get, then someone gives you both, and then what do you do? Like the internal civil war that never ends. Do you know what I mean? Like, so what? I suppose it's not doom and gloom. Should we do a good one? What do you like about ADHD? What's your favourite thing about ADHD or autism? Start flick again.
Oh God, my most favourite thing is never knowing what's going to come out of my mouth, and the fact that I make other people feel happy. I can make them laugh. I can make sure they're going to have a fun time. So for me, it's always been about the positive vibes, wanting everyone else to be on my level, I suppose. I want everyone to feel happy. I want everyone to feel like an adult, still feel like they're a child, not be ashamed, to feel comfortable in their own skin, like to... God, oh, sorry, that's not even one thing, is it? Sorry.
That's right.
That's the side of it I love, is me being able to absolutely own who I am, be so comfortable with it, and for other people to take inspiration from that. So if I've got to go out there and be the like over dramatic weirdo that's always singing and dancing, 100%, because if it makes you laugh, makes you happy, makes you feel comfortable in your own skin, I'm down for it.
Yeah.
That's what I love about ADHD.
Brilliant. How about you, Louise, with your kids? What do you think?
I think it's just their ability to not care what other people think. Like, they are so carefree, and they'll open their mouth and whatever comes out, they really don't care. Because we when Reese was younger, he was completely non-verbal until he was 7, and his behaviour was really bad. He used to have a lot of like really violent meltdowns, and he'd lash out a lot. It took us a long time to get him on a level where he wasn't doing that, and so we used to get a lot of judgment when we went out, a lot of people staring and making comments, and that used to really get to me because I care way too much what other people think. I'm the complete opposite to the boys. So I think to have that ability to just brush that off and just be like, well, that person doesn't matter and what they think doesn't matter, I think is an amazing quality to have.
100%.
Yeah, I've got that.
The kids we used to work with at school, like that sense of them not caring as well was crazy, wasn't it? They just literally nothing. To the extreme, they'll go out naked, like, and not care. But like, it's kind of.
But that was hard because I cared how. Like
you do.
I cared, and I was still quite defensive and angry about how other people reacted. Which again, it's not their fault because if you're not educated or you're not aware, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's something I've got better with as I've got older. It's actually understanding from other people's point of view. Let's say having you think, do you know what? Let me just go and educate you.
What happens with my GCSEs?
Go on.
So I was again labelled as like the kid that didn't listen, didn't concentrate, essentially labelled as stupid, like she doesn't know anything, whatever. I was putting bottom sets for everything. So it comes to doing GCSEs, I had the lower paper, whatever. Wasn't expected to really get many GCSEs, and I come away with 13, but they were all grade 6 because they thought that I didn't know any of this stuff. So I've done the lower paper and got full marks in all my GCSEs. And because they were like, what the hell? You've just sat there for like 5-6 years pretending you don't know anything. But you've answered every single question right. You've got full marks. You could have done the higher paper. And I was like, yeah, no, I didn't want to. I was like, didn't I think it's like, again, with ADHD, you get that competitiveness. So I think that's what's always been my drive. And it was every time I've been written off, like, God, I've got 13 GCSEs, like 4 A levels, like BTEC National Diploma. I've done all this stuff. And because like, I just do it just to prove people wrong. I don't want it. I'm not interested. It means nothing to me. But I'm like, just to prove people wrong, just to be like. So my mum was like, you're not allowed to smoke, you're not allowed to boyfriend, you're not allowed to go out, blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry, I've got to go out of my way to go and do it now. Like, and it wasn't even, I don't know, maybe it was a purposeful thing, but it was just, oh, they've told me not to do something. Let me just go. So now I'm like, but this is where it's come in handy, because with my son, I'm like, if I tell him not to go and do something, 100% he's going to go and do it. So I'm very mindful with just sort of not saying anything at all. So because I don't want to put an idea in his head, and that's another thing with somebody with ADHD. The moment you implant that little, it could just be mentioning something, but it's you're planting the seed. So for me, I'm like, I'm very mindful not to plant the seed, because I think my mum done that a lot with me, not intentionally, she didn't know, but it was just sort of, you can't do this, you can't do that. There's so many rules, so many boundaries, which work to an extent, but it was then, but why not? What's going to happen if I do it? Like, now I need to go and find out. So just constantly diving head first into all this stuff, like, don't jump off that wall, you'll break your leg. And I'm like, will I? Let me just jump off the wall and find out. Just to prove people wrong.
But that's hard, because, and that's another thing that I said when I had my assessment. I feel ashamed still at the stuff, and it's not even anything, it's not a big deal, but it's just if somebody says not to do something or you can't do that, I just can't, there's something that reacts inside me and I have to do it. And I said to her, you know, I thought I'd have grown out of that by now, but it's part of ADHD, which I didn't realise. I just thought I was an idiot.
Like, if there's a button to be pressed, I'm pressing the button. If someone said to me, like, if you don't press that button, I'll give you £1 million. Well, I'd rather press the button. I want, and I don't care about it. I just want to press the button. Potentially nothing will happen, but I don't know. I just need to press the button.
You're not going to go and try and be the president of the United States or anything, are you, Flick? Just checking. Pressing buttons.
I'm going to be Prime Minister. What happened?
Oh, I love it.
I was like, imagine England with like an ADHD Prime Minister.
Wouldn't be allowed. There's no way.
Get
It would get fired. But can you imagine that it wouldn't get going up? You have to be in high pressure situations, not say the wrong thing. It's never going to happen.
I have
You have to be politically correct.
No, but I've had good jobs and good careers.
An honest Prime Minister that says it how it is.
He wouldn't care, would he? He just wouldn't answer anyone.
No.
Wouldn't just done his own thing. Yeah, don't care. No, don't care what you think or what you want. I'm doing what I want.
Yeah.
I don't think so. No, I mean, Blake's pretty much kind of the same. You tell him not to do something, you know damn well he's going to do it. But I use it to my advantage now because I'm like, oh, but like, I really wish like you wouldn't tidy your bedroom, like you'd leave it as like a mess, because I love it when you leave it as a mess. Knowing full well, and he's going to go upstairs and he's going to tidy his bedroom. So, I do kind of use it to my advantage sometimes. I'm like, I know how I'm going to get you to do something without actually telling you. And I learned that with Reese because Reese, there was a question over his head of whether or not he had PDA at one point. So I can't remember what it's called. Pathological demand avoidance, I think it is. But it's basically like general stuff that you would ask him to do, which wouldn't like get your shoes on or get your coat on, but he'll refuse to do it. And he'll refuse to do it on purpose. No reasoning why he doesn't want to do it, but just purely because he's decided that because you've asked him to do it, he's not going to do it. And so I guess I'm just used to it now. It's just our life now.
I was like, do I have PDA then? Like, is this separate to ADHD? Because I thought, as long as I can remember, the moment someone's told me to do something, and even to this day, I still do it now. If you told me to do something and I'm not going to do it, and like I'll go out.
PDA is often in people that have autism.
Yeah, it's more important. You get ODD is ADHD version sort of if you want to simplify it. You're kind of more going to get PDA with the autistic route or the personality disorder route actually. So you can get like if you get like saying that BPD, you'll probably get PDA as well instead of the ODD diagnosis.
See, when we looked at it, we were told that they don't diagnose PDA really anymore. Because it's hard to kind of prove it. So they just left a question mark over that with Reese. I'm pretty certain he probably does have PDA as well, but obviously we've got his main diagnosis and I don't need to keep pushing it, and get more labels for him. That I don't like that, but because it doesn't matter anyways, he is what he is, and we just kind of deal with that and cope with it.
Yeah.
I mean, something I've just started doing, which is ridiculous because I know that this works, is doing a meal planner for the week. Because otherwise I'm answering the question about dinner 500 times a day. Pardon?
See, dinner's still my live life on the edge. My spontaneous, what are we going to have for dinner? I can't plan. I can't meal plan. I can't do it because in my head, again, ADHD, you're going to eat the same thing over and over and over until all of a sudden you can't stomach it anymore, and you're looking at it makes you feel sick, and then you're just going to eat some other random thing. So I can't plan a meal because potentially I'm not even going to fancy that. It has to be on the day. What do I want? Yeah. I'll plan kids, but I won't plan my own.
I think it's more to support someone with autism because I'm exactly like the Flick. So I do this menu plan.
Yeah.
So then the two young people that have got autism will ask me what's for dinner, and they read it, and I said, oh yeah, but we're not going to have. That's really bad advice, so I don't stick to it. But again, sometimes, and that's not with everybody, but as a teacher, sometimes things do change, and we would plan our day, and we would have like a daily schedule, whatever you want to call it, where you have each of the activities, and then you have lunch. But then it's almost like, I think one of you was saying about when you plan a surprise, which is really difficult to navigate. But for example, if we were going out on some transport and the transport wasn't available, we needed to try and help the young people and the children not smash your face in because we didn't have that option, but trying to teach them strategies to manage their behaviour and to accept that sometimes there is going to be change, but it's hard.
Yeah.
So just for everyone else out there listening, late diagnosis, how much support is there for you to find, and where is it, and how good is it?
Got to love a leaflet, haven't you?
I was about to say, is it just literally leaflets? There's nothing like this. I know there's nothing like this, but like, I suppose there isn't, is there?
No, medication and leaflets.
Yeah.
Apology, maybe. Sorry for saying.
Issues. No, for me, there was no help at all. It was like, oh yeah, you've got ADHD, but it wasn't to help me. It was to help understand my son more. So for me, it, again, like with Sharon, like where you've just experienced it, it opens up this whole minefield because you question your whole life. You look back at your whole life and then you're like, oh my God. But I done a lot of research and I found a lot of ways to help myself, like the meditation, stuff like that, eating the right foods, even drinking water. Like as ADHD, like I'll have 3 drinks on the go the whole time, but I'd never drink any water. I was always thirsty. So it's now I have like a bottle of water, I have a squash or a fizzy drink and a cup of tea, like something with the caffeine in it. But for me, it was, again, the diagnosis just helped me understand everything I do so much more. I could then go and find my own help, find what worked for me. And the biggest thing that I found was a guy called David Smith on TikTok, and he is the mindset soldier, the positive mindset soldier, because I didn't realise the impact that being around negative people that had a negative mindset really affected me. I can't cope with negativity. As an ADHD person, you cannot cope with negativity.
Yeah, that is so true. So true.
Is it negativity or is it them not reflecting what you want to do?
No,
in some sense,
absorb it.
as in like if
literally, it feels like it brings me. I think that does for everybody. I've done training just in leadership training, and they call it certain mood hoovers. So you know when you go into work and you're in a good mood, you go morning, and someone goes, "Is it?"
Yeah, but again, that's because
that starts to pull you down. Yeah, but
because you wanted them to reflect your energy, but they didn't.
It's just
it is because that's because if you think about it, really, it's so I thought, I'm not saying all the time because I know what you're saying about thingy, but most of the time, if I go into a room, if you go to a party, you're like, come on in, let's go it, and everyone's like, no, I don't want to. That's what you're talking about, isn't it? So that's them because they're not reflecting your energy levels, which is going to be hard because you've got ADHD and they're never going to come close.
But
so how many rooms do you walk in that is like that?
The training I was talking about though wasn't around neurodiversity. It was around leadership and management, and saying that people who are negative impact on your own mental health and your well-being, because it can bring you right down, or it can, if you're around someone flick like us where we're all, that also rubs off. It can probably be quite annoying as well if we're a bit, I feel like I'm too much sometimes, but yeah, I was
just trying to be devil's advocate because I was about to say, as you touched on it, the other side of it, how do you feel that people that you come into a room all energetic and you're going for like a business meeting, if that's not appropriate to the situation, and then you turn around and say, "Oh, you lot are boring."
No, because I said that in my
do you know what I mean? As I said, what happens? Let's be real.
We as females are very good at it. So actually, I've had some very good jobs where I can't be bouncy and I can't be impulsive because I'm chairing big meetings or I'm speaking in front of people, but I do, and I know how to listen, and I know how to sit on my hands or pretend I'm writing, because that's a good one. I'm writing very important things, but my brain's taking it all in, so I know how to behave. It doesn't mean I find it easy, and that's what I mean. It's exhausting most of the time, because it's just you're keeping it all in. But it doesn't mean I can't. I do like to use my hands a lot when I talk, but I'm not now because I know it's annoying. So I sit on it. So yeah, and it's like you saying about getting angry. I get that, but that's I would say that's a male-female difference, and any women that want to tell me that that's wrong. But again, how this goes up to how you're brought up and what society puts on men and women, or boys and girls growing up. And girls should behave a certain way, and boys should be. I know that's changing as we become more aware of things, and that's a lot of society as well.
It's nature versus nurture, isn't it? So you and that's going back to even the anger in the females. I think that doesn't come from female to male differences. That comes to upbringing. So if you're in a house that's very shouty, very volatile, the woman's going to express that violent things. Males, I think, are more likely to do that because again, males do fight within each other, isn't it? Still sort of that's and then when you get to females, it comes to social construct. You don't do that to females. So again, you mask into your society as being a male, a female, and then into ADHD, and then into normal society. So like having just a normal, what you have to do as male and female would lead you down a different path with or without ADHD. Is what I'm trying to say. So if you add ADHD into that and then the masking elements to it, it's very hard to then pull apart. I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
don't know. You've gone, and I've gone halfway there, and then I stopped.
So like what I'm saying is nature versus nurture. So it'd be interesting to see which part of the ADHD is male and female differences without any social constructs, because a lot of it is down to the sociology of how we are. Women, they interact as I've worked in workforces, mainly women. I can tell you now, it's completely different setup to a group of guys. Like, and it mirrors. There's certain things in social like settings that always mirror.
But that is another story.
No, but is that a difference? Is that a male and female difference, or is it you mirror different because of social constructs? So how much is it? But is it DNA difference or is it society difference?
Society.
You really think?
Yeah,
I don't believe that.
Okay.
I think like ADHD symptoms are both male and female, the same for everything. We present them differently because of the way that the world's set up for male and females. And I think if there's equal footing, then it will be. Yeah. So they'll. No. So you agree that male and female genetically don't actually have that much differences? It's just the way that we're brought up. Exactly. So you don't agree.
You're just confused.
But yeah, I say, anybody else's opinion on that? Yeah.
The thing is, me and Sharon were saying about this earlier, like back in school, even now as an adult, I have always mixed with men better than women, because with men, I could be just who I am. There was no social expectations. I could say wherever I liked, I could act however I liked, and it wasn't looked down upon. Like, not all girls shouldn't do that. Like in our family, we would always fight. My brothers and my sisters, we'd have full punch ups, and it was all fun and games. Like if we had a problem, we'd have a little punch up, and that's how we solved it. So to me, that was normal. It wasn't, was that a difference between girls and boys, whatever. And it was then when I was in high school, got into arguments, and I just thought, well, that's all right, we just fight it out. Like that's good. And the girls said, oh, we're going to have a fight about it and sort it out. And they're like, what?
It's just like 6 months of progress, isn't it? For girls, all behind your back, through other friends and stuff.
Like, again, for girls, you couldn't be dealing with this whole like social expectations, gossiping, being normal. Whereas you go with the lads, they just accept you the way you are.
And play football or just do something physical, and then it's that probably sounded.
You can play football, rugby, whatever. They didn't want to do it. And now I was like, well, that's all I want to do. I just want to be running rounds. I just want to be competitive and do all this shit. I want to go and ride my bike. Like, go on my motor, play in the woods.
Exactly.
No, this could be another debate that I didn't want to go up to.
No.
Don't say.
No, I was going to say, so going back into it. Yeah, no.
Just don't say it.
No, because.
To be yourself, but sometimes don't say
I wasn't going to say what you think you're going to say. No, I was going to go back to the difference in the man and female, because related back to it, in autism, there's not. Because the autism takes away the social constructs, because they don't normally care. Which is why that's my argument for ADHD, male and female doesn't exist. It's just a socially.
Oh yeah, I agreed with you on that, but I think you misunderstood. But I did agree, because I said it's society, because how women. Because I'm studying at the moment, I'm getting to learn a lot more, and I feel quite. It's wrong that we're not taught a lot of stuff about how women have been treated. We're very aware of how women are treated in other countries, perhaps, or in other cultures, and the differences, and whether you agree or you don't agree, that's up to you. But even in the UK, there are big differences, but that's another thing. But yeah.
I was about to say, you got a black guy in this call. You don't want to go down the route of unfairness and being treated. No, I'm joking.
Where we are today.
Don't you just think that as a generic society, we need to change? As I said, we've all evolved into learning all about mental health and all this stuff now, and wanting to learn about women's history, wanting to learn about all the injustices that happen. But the school system and the system of the government's not changed at all. It's
No.
outdated massively.
Like, my saying is always, like, for me, there's no touchy subject. There's nothing that I will, like, if you ask me, I'll talk about whatever.
Brilliant.
There's no shame on anything. And I think there's still this massive stigma that, and people don't talk about it, the damage that's been done to a lot of women between the ages of, like, say 30 and 50, where they weren't recognised as having ADHD. And I think, for me, my God, the struggles that I had, and I see so many women, and, like, again, for me, the biggest one is Amy Winehouse. She has ADHD. She was an undiagnosed woman with ADHD. And it's so frustrating to look at, because I'm like, all the signs were there. Nobody spoke about it. Nobody acknowledged it. And that is why she then ended up having the life that she had, just to try and dull herself down to some sort of normality that she was told to fit into this box. And nobody's speaking about the damage that's been done to these women between the ages of 30 and 50 from being undiagnosed.
No, that's
true.
Really true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the more awareness you can raise and actually get women talking, I know there's loads of women that are struggling out there with ADHD. They're picking up bad habits, addictions, whatever, just to try and dull into it, like, be normal, whatever. And I'm like, but we shouldn't be ashamed.
Yeah.
I think, like you said, that's when we haven't received a diagnosis, we just think it's us, and we think we've got an addictive personality, or we think, because we're either looking for that rush of dopamine, or we're looking to dumb it down. And unfortunately, all the things that do that aren't really great. So apart from exercise, I wouldn't mind getting into that, but that's not a habit I seem to be able to pick up.
So what, Louise, I'll ask you, because yours will be different, because it's not, I said you can lean on the autism, and that's completely different. It's in the sense of how that's been treated, accepted into society, and the information. Do you feel there's a lack of information of autism?
Massively.
What, after diagnosis? Or do you still think,
No, when Reese was diagnosed, we were just told he had autism and basically go away and deal with it. I had to go away now to educate myself. I went on loads of courses to learn about what autism is and how it works and how I could help him. When Blake was diagnosed, it was slightly better. We were given an information pack with some information on, like, local services and autism. But I think it depends where you live as well. Because it's very much a postcode thing. I think some areas are more well equipped to actually give that information out and give that help and support. But I found social media really good for just, like, educating myself. So TikTok particularly. And especially when Blake was going through his ADHD assessment, I researched a lot on TikTok about it. And a lot of my information is from me self-educating myself. I've not really had anyone that's actually sat there and supported me and said, well, this is what it is and this is what you need to do. I think both with autism and ADHD, I think there needs to be a massive change in how people shouldn't be just given the diagnosis and sent away. They should be given information. They should be able to understand it a little bit more and understand how they can help themselves or help their children as well.
You wouldn't give it's weird, isn't it? Because you wouldn't give, like, a diagnosis of severe depression without following up with tablets or counselling or keeping them in check, would you? Like, further. But it's weird that they just give a diagnosis of ADHD and autism, and just that's it. But if you went and said, "Oh, I'm really depressed. I don't know what I'm going to do, and I'm feeling suicidal," or something like that, they have to act a certain way, don't they? There's a pathway. They'll have professionals linked into it. You'll get documented. It'll be on the system forever. People will know that every time you go to hospital from now on. Like, they don't have to do anything, isn't it? I think that's where, because they don't have to, and there's no funding, they're not going to until it's pushed to the point that it's a requirement, which, again, I think we're quite far away from. And it's going to be TikTok. It's going to be people that have got it that are going to give the things. But unfortunately, that's not what changes and puts the things in the world, is it? Professionals, it's the people that have gone and got these jobs or in higher power that are going to do it. They're so far away from people from TikTok that I don't know what's going to have to happen to bridge a gap unless we just freelance it. forget it, just drop it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's been good so far. I think that's good.